And so I went back and I took a little swig of it, and I was like, oh man, I'm thinking that thing's turned bad. I'm like, this thing is funky. Something fucked this thing up.
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky in the 6. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant podcast.
It's a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And tonight we have a special guest, Scott from the Scotch Test Dummies, SMWS, the legend himself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, I don't know about the legend part of that, but Legend of the Fall, maybe? Was that
I would call you a legend. You've been at this game for a long time. You and Bart were the first to ever invite me outside of my own channel onto a new channel that at the time I thought I was like, oh my goodness, these guys are talking to me. They have like 3,000 subscribers and I had like 500 or something like that. And I thought it was such a cool thing.
Yeah, I remember I think you were like out on a date with the wife or something, and you were like, you had to get home, by 7 or 8 o'clock, whatever, to do the live.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, honey, I'm in the big times now.
Yeah.
I'm doing a Zoom with Scotch Test Dummies.
It was a big deal for me. I remember being so nervous for that whole thing. Like I was just a deer caught in the headlights the entire conversation.
That's hilarious.
It was Bart and I started 2013, so it's been a little over 10 years now, October of 2013. And probably it took us a couple years before, it was 2016, 2017 before we started doing live streams. But you remember back then, and there was just a handful of us, Rob.
Yeah,
Jeremy.
it was. It was just like maybe 6 or 7 of us.
Yeah. And we were we were doing live streams all the time and hooking up and doing different things. And
yeah,
times have changed. I think like you guys, everybody gets busy and some things just don't happen quite the same as they used to. But
yeah.
You
know what? You're right in that it was a small group niche, and everybody kind of knew everybody at the time. Everybody was kind of trying to help everybody out. And then within the last, I guess 3 or 4 years, there's hundreds of Whiskey Tube channels,
maybe thousands of Whiskey Tube channels.
Is it thousands?
I wouldn't imagine so.
That's like that blows my mind.
Yeah,
that blows my mind. I know. Among all the platforms, I'm sure there's thousands for sure. Because there's Instagram guys that have hundreds of thousands of followers that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, exactly. And then TikTok's in a whole other beast as well.
TikTok as well, So, but yeah, there. What's really changed in the last 4 or 5 years is the Bourbon Tube.
Oh yeah,
like, Bourbon Tube is massive.
Bourbon's gone big, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If we would have been the Bourbon Test Dummies, we'd have done a little bit better, probably. I still have Bart. It's still the wild card there.
But you know what though, you guys have done well for yourself and your whiskey tubing. I'm sure when you started Scotch Test Dummies, you had no idea that it would lead you to where you are right now with the SMWS, and the fact that you're able to still do both is really, really cool as well. So why don't you explain that little transition for us? Because you've been around, like you said, since 2013. I started around 2015. I think you guys had me on near the end of, or the summer of 2016. So it was like less than a year into my journey. And you guys, I think, really helped me out. So I'd love to hear what your journey was like.
And I can remember those days too. And there really wasn't, and I still don't feel like it's viewed as competition, amongst any channels. But even at that time, I would I'd watched you and I'd be like, okay, because there were some other people too, and you're like, yeah, I don't like the way they do things, or they just don't seem to be, kind of along our same, spectrum. And so, I'd watch you and I was like, this Rob Whiskey in the 6 guy is a pretty good guy. We ought to have him on the show. And that's what we would do with channels, is kind of, at the time we were probably the biggest one. Like, you had Ralphie, the OG of YouTubers.
Right.
And then, Bart and I really got some pretty good traction, some good ground going until the bourbon tubers come in there. And more power to them too. Love all those guys too. Met most of them, real good, real good people. Everybody's got the same goal, I think, and that's just enjoying whiskey and talking whiskey and getting the word out to people.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bart and I had collaborated, probably like you have, just had different distillers on, different whiskey companies, importers, whiskey writers, other people in the whiskey industry. We worked with and collaborated with a lot of people. And one that we had done quite a bit with was the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. And I'd gotten to know Ben Diedrich pretty well. He's one of the senior directors there now. But, and I was in law enforcement and had been for 20 plus years. It was coming up on almost 30 years in law enforcement back in 2021. And I had reached out, I'd looked at what's my next step coming up on retirement. And I wanted to get into whiskey. Looking back on just people that we'd worked with, things that we knew, I loved what the SMWS did, the whiskeys that they did, the fact that they worked with almost every distillery out there, sourcing whiskeys. And I knew there wouldn't be or shouldn't be, a conflict of interest between the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society and the Scotch Test Dummies. Because if we wanted to talk about Macallan, we could. If we wanted to talk about Ardbeg, we could. Lafroig, Deanston, whoever, because the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society works with all of them. I mean, there's really no conflict of interest there. So I'd reached out to Ben early in 2021 and was like, hey, if I retired later this year, would you guys have a job for me? And he said, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And you've collected quite the library of bottles behind you.
So how does the library behind you work? Does that come out of, did you agree on like them paying you in Scotch or like that's a lot of
work for
both. Yeah, it's a good perk. No, I get paid and I get Scotch.
That's
so
huge. Yeah.
I mean, and I don't even know. I'm probably around 300 bottles maybe of SMWS stuff.
Wow.
But I mean, you're doing, so do you want me to go into the SMWS a little bit as for those that don't know what it is?
Absolutely.
The SMWS, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, originated in Scotland back in the 80s. The founder, Pip Hills, and a buddy had gone to Glenfarclas at the time, which later becomes known as Distillery Number 1. We work in distillery codes. But they'd gone to Glenfarclas and they said, hey, we want to buy a cask of whiskey. This is the Cliff Note version of it. Glenfarclas was kind of like, well, back in the 80s, they were like, well, no one's really come here on their own looking for a cask of whiskey, but I guess we can sell you one. So they sold Pip and his buddy a cask of whiskey. They took it home, shared it right out of the cask with their buddies. They found it to be delicious, this non-watered down cask strength whiskey in this single cask form. And they had some buddies that said, hey, next time you do that, we want to get in, with you on that deal. So it grew and grew from there. We're over 40,000 members now worldwide, over 7,000 in the States. And I'm not sure where Canada has a branch as well. I'm not sure where their membership is at.
It's in Alberta. I know that Kensington Wine, and I think the other one is Chateau Louis in Alberta. So it's Calgary and Edmonton. Yeah.
So they source whiskey. And so take an example. I pulled out, you had mentioned talking about Hazelburn, one of the spring banks. I don't know if you were wanting to stick with Campbelltown region or not. We recently, a few months ago, we had a 32-year-old spring bank. I want to say 32-year-old.
That's cool.
It was either 29 or 32. Now I don't remember.
Did you get one of those?
I did not get one of those. No. I contemplated it, but I did not. But anyway, I pulled out a couple of our Glen Scotias or Distillery 93. This is, if you look on our labels, this is 93.202. The 93 means that's the 93rd distillery that we bought whiskey from, which is in this case Glen Scotia. And then the 202 means that's the 202nd cask that we got from Glen Scotia. So that's how our distillery codes work. And you guys have one there that's 30 point.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
pulled out this relic. This
So
is
yeah, we
an old
were
Dusty here.
members for a couple years.
Yeah.
And this one we bought back then. So some of my I wish you still had the one that you thought you had, which was
The pastries and sweet treats.
Yeah, it was a Bushmill pastries and sweet treat,
Yeah, that one
which was probably honestly up there with some of the best whiskeys I've ever had.
I mean, for Irish whiskey, it definitely was up there.
For sure.
Yeah.
This one is really good though, and it's probably benefited from being open for quite some time.
Scott, we tried to test your knowledge on the bottle code. This is a
30.100.
Yeah, I had to look it up. It didn't come to mind. That's Glen Rothes.
Yeah.
So
this is
Glen Rothes being the
second-
30th distillery, and then the 100th cask that we'd purchased.
100 casks from Glen Rothes. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a beast of a whiskey.
It's a beast.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It says second fill. Well, okay, so for those of you that don't know, SMWS is extremely transparent in the way they present their whiskeys, and I know that all these colors mean something, and you could probably explain that in just a sec. But it tells you obviously the ABV, which I think is like law, but 56.5. Then it tells you distilled April 17th, 1997. Second fill butt / X sherry. So X sherry butt. And then obviously space side 30 telling you, and there's the codes you can find pretty much anywhere on the web, right? And it's 30 is Glen Rothes.
I'd say they're hidden in plain view. If you anybody can Google SMWS distillery codes and find, there's several sources out there, several websites that keep up to date information. We don't release them. We used to I believe until 2015 or so, and then they kind of quit releasing them and sticking with the distillery codes. Some of that I've heard is just tied into some distilleries, and I think we're even getting more and more nowadays. If they sell whiskey, they want it in their bottles with their labels, or they want their name on it, or you have to pay for the rights to do it. So to avoid that, we stick with the numbering, the distillery codes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right on.
I mean, Highland Park's notorious for not allowing independent bottlers to throw their name on it for the most part.
Yeah, there's certain independent bottlers that can use them.
Gordon MacPhail does it.
And so does, I think, such with an S, Signatory. I believe they do as well.
I think Signatory will use the Isle of Orkney or the Orkney Islands.
Maybe you're right. Actually, I think you are right about that.
That's what most people do, right? It's just like Orkney Islands and whatever.
Yeah, true.
Scott, let's talk about that because, as you know, like a year ago, Gordon MacPhail said that they're no longer going to support their independent bottling market. When you heard that news, were you concerned at all about, like, you know, if that was how the industry was going, that like major distilleries aren't going to sell casks to independent bottlers anymore? Was there any concern about that with SMWS?
Yeah, in the upper echelons, I don't know because I'm not privy to that, of course, being a member relations manager in my role. And I've heard that though, and I've known that, and even in the United States, more and more, with bourbons, we used to see all these, store picks or these special select single casks people were getting. And I've heard that even bourbon distilleries are really cutting back on that. Or even if they do, like I said, they want it in their bottle with their label on it, and it's getting harder and harder to do. From what I've heard, though, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society we're actually a publicly traded company on the London Stock Exchange. Okay. Artisanal Spirits Company is our name, or ASC. But we also just purchased Single Cask Nation.
Oh, okay.
So, another independent bottler had pretty big business here in the States.
Yep.
But along so where I was getting, I've heard though that the SMWS we're still the largest independent bottler, volume wise, because we do have a warehouse as well with over 15,000 casks in it, and we're always actively buying our own casks. We're doing our own cask exploration. We're buying White Dog from distilleries as well and putting it into our own wood, things like that. So it's pretty expansive, but I do think personal experience or personal knowledge. It's getting harder and harder to do, and I think we're only going to see that worsen over the years. We'll see.
Yeah, I think when we have a friend, James. He's a rep that represents Gordon MacPhail along with other things as well. And essentially what he was saying is like, yeah, you might not see these big distilleries in the independent bottling market as much, but you're going to see all these new distilleries in the independent bottling market. You're going to see these new distilleries that are popping up. They're still willing to sell their casks because they've got to make ends meet being a new distillery. So you might get a variety, a huge selection of like different distilleries coming to market as independent bottlings, but not necessarily like your Ardbegs and your Lefroy's and stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know that SMWS did one Shelter Point so far, so they explored Canada so far, I believe.
Yeah, that's our first one.
Yeah, and there's other distilleries out here that I'm sure, both parties would benefit from exploring, like Macalonis and Two Brewers. So let's see what happens with that. But I mean, there's gonna be options out there, I think, forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much whiskey nowadays, right? Like, and all these distilleries, they got to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So, and a cool way to explore, especially if they're filling casks, SMWS filling casks as well. Putting their own spin on distillate and maturing it the way that they think is right, which is kind of cool as well.
Yeah.
What do these colors mean again, Scott? I forget. I used to know, but
So that there's with the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society works with 12 flavor profiles. So each flavor profile gets a color coding. Like peat, our peat is green. There's 3 different shades of green for 3 different peat levels. We've got 3 different shades of blue, 3 different shades of purple. There's a kind of a burnt orange, which is what that one looks like, which is our deep, rich, and dried fruits. Most of those are our sherried whiskeys, Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez. They 95% of the time they're going to end up in that burnt orange, deep, rich, and dried fruits profile. I have seen them with lighter influences of the sherry where they might end up in spicy and dry or spicy and sweet profile.
Right.
And then there's old and dignified. There's a flavor profile for that. It's like a maroon color, and the spicy and dry is like a khaki color.
Right on. Yeah. Cool, like way to kind of distinguish. If you're a fan of one flavor profile, you can just stick to that color, and that's kind of the way you buy your SMWS, right?
Yeah. And with peat, some people love peat, some people don't, and so if they don't like peat, they know to stay clear of the green labels.
Yeah.
And then certain people, juicy oak and vanilla is one of the shades of blue. You have some people that just get into that 1 or 2 flavor profiles that they love, and that's what they stick with. It could be the deep, rich, and dried fruits. This Glen Scotia here, this dark blue, this is the darkest blue. This is oily and coastal flavor profile. Really popular. Those whiskeys really pack a punch.
That'd be like an ex bourbon maturation for that one.
Most of them, yeah.
Nice.
So what have you been drinking? I mean, obviously you got the Glen Scotia there, but what else has stood out for you recently from SMWS?
Oh shoot, a lot. Seriously, we've had just some great bottles, and of course I don't get to try them all. We had a Ben Rennis last month that was Pedro Jimenez matured. That was fantastic. We've got a Kalila 11-year-old. Sorry, and our Kalila single casks are phenomenal as well. But we've got a Kalila right now from an Oloroso cask.
It's crazy how Kalila is always better independently bottled.
I wonder why.
Oh,
It always is. No matter who the independent bottling is, it's like Kalila is just like better that way.
Yeah, they just butcher their own whiskey, but when they give it to everybody else, they do a better job.
They do.
They distill a great whiskey.
One of this is the khaki color. This is spicy and dry, and this is really kind of like oily and coastals. These can really pack a punch on the palate. But this bottle right here was out last year. This is a Dalmore that was non-sherry casked.
Interesting.
It was just a second fill ex bourbon barrel, 9 years old, and this thing is phenomenal. I've shared it with people and talked this thing up because blind, you would never guess Dalmore.
I feel like that's one of the ones that I had in the blind that we did. So for those of you that don't know, Scott did a North America wide blind tasting of SMWS stuff, and I was involved in it. And
you did well.
I did okay. I did okay considering. You know what? I did. You know, it is what it is. It's not easy to do at all. Like
No.
I feel like that's kind of the general
And I
consensus.
know Jeremy was like, "What the hell?" My boy Rob gets Lope Loman
Man,
perfectly
some
nails
people
it.
do him dirty on those blind tastings. For sure. Some people do Rob real dirty on those.
You know what? I nailed the Loch Lomond, which was crazy, but
Mhm.
it because it's so hard to pick a distillery, like dead shot a distillery.
Mhm.
I don't think it wasn't worth that much to do it
Mhm.
because I bet you don't get it very often, right? So
Yeah, it was good. That was the extra bonus point is what got you, and or yeah, it was worth half a point or a point or something like that.
yeah, it was good. It was
Have
fun
a
though.
point. I think we should be the whole. You name the distillery, you win. And it's like the game's over.
Game over.
Game over. It's over.
That was good though. It was
But no, anyway, you were coming up. Did you think I might have sent you a sample of that one?
something like that. Yeah, I think there was that was involved in the tasting
Might have
at
been.
some point. I'm not sure if I was the one that received it or someone in the tasting received it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think
because of how unique it is. And you're talking, like you're talking about, how Kalilas from independent bottlers are so much better than off the shelf.
Yeah.
Off the shelf, we see, these profiles from distilleries that they kind of try to stick with. And Dalmore is sherried whiskeys. And so you take a Dalmore that hasn't been anywhere near a sherry cask and it's been in a second fill, its entire maturation. And, it's presented at, that one's like 63% AB, 64.
Wow.
64.6% ABV, and it's phenomenal. It's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That one's gonna pack a punch for sure.
Yeah.
I did have a question. You spoke about a Springbank 32-year-old earlier.
Mhm.
What are some of like the more like what would you say is the oldest cask you guys have? Do you know? Do you have any information on stuff like that? Like what is the range of older casks?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that information. We did just have a 40-year-old for our 40th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So presumably more, yeah. So you'll probably have older stuff than that somewhere.
It was $4,000. It sat on it sold out. It did. I mean, it hung around for a little bit for people that wanted it, but no, it did sell out. So now, yeah, but older than that, I don't know. We're releasing probably at least 10 to 12 whiskeys a year that are over 30 years old.
Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah.
30 to 33.
Yeah.
Nice.
How many whiskeys does SMWS put out a year?
Well, you're going to look at
it's all regionally specific as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the UK, of course, being the mothership, and they have the largest membership as well, though. I mean, they're over 35,000 members, in the UK. They get the lion's share of, so in the States, we do 2 releases a month, one at the first of the month and then one mid-month. The first of the month is usually 10 to 12 to 15, bigger months, 15 casks, but usually 10 to 12. And then mid-month will be 5 to 8 casks. So you're looking at around 20 casks a month that we're releasing. The UK is probably releasing 3 to 4 times that a month.
That
But,
sounds
they've
like a lot. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds like a ton. Yeah. Well, that's what the cool thing about being part of SMWS is that like you're getting a cask strength version of all the distilleries that you love anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So obviously there's some weeks or months or whatever that maybe you're not going to buy as much as the months before because those ones don't. But you guys tend to release something from every color every month. Is that how it works or not necessarily?
No, not even necessarily. There's oily and coastal, that dark blue. Those aren't released. We don't get as many of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a heavily peated category, which is the darkest of the greens. Those don't come around that often either. So those are probably the 2 most unseen, flavor profile. So when they do hit, they're usually pretty popular and will move pretty quick.
Yeah.
But
Probably more because they're like when you buy an Ardbeg cask or you buy a Lefroy cask, you're assuming it's going to be heavily peated, but you don't know until you pop that bad boy open, and it's like, well, this is not as peated as we would have liked, so it can't necessarily fit under this category. So we have to put it under like one of the lower or lighter green categories, I guess, right?
Well, so in Scotland, the UK, at the headquarters, we have a tasting panel, and the tasting panel they're brought samples basically blind. I mean, they have like a code, from the warehouse of what barrel it is.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll go through all these samples each month or every other week and decide, okay, this one's ready to be released. This one, keep this one in the cask for a little while longer. Why don't let's take this third one, let's move it to an Oloroso cask and see what happens. Things like that. So if they decide though that they pick out 6 casks or 6 samples that are ready, then they'll take tasting notes on it. They'll name it, at the same time as well. Like all of our whiskeys get named. So they're coming up with the tasting notes and then the names of the whiskeys and the flavor profiles, kind of all, I don't know if it's all like right at the same time or, they're the ones that are doing it. So it's really how they feel, which flavor profile the whiskey lies in.
It's gotta be tough to like never repeat the same name.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever suggested to them, you guys should blend something, or would you automatically get fired if you even like said something like that?
No, we have done our own blends.
Oh, you have
actually.
blended.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
okay.
they're even doing that. We call those we do have blended batches.
See, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, we just released, I think 21 or 22 is coming up. I think we released 21 and blended batch 22 is coming up. But not all of them have been blended batches. They've stuck with that moniker with some small batch releases where we take several casks from one distillery, and they won't disclose which distillery, but it's a batch release in the blended batch series, but it's labeled a single malt Scotch, Speyside or something like that. But they won't say this is distillery 24,
Right.
or something.
Yeah, I mean, geez, with 15,000 barrels or whatever you said that they had, what possibilities you could come up with? You could really have the whole rainbow at your disposal to blend that cool stuff.
I would be so tempted to do an infinity release.
Right.
Like just one bottle from every single cask. Ooh. Like put into a vat, like a Solera, and then release that.
That's great.
Whatever it turns out like, it turns out like, and that's it.
There you go. When you pitch
Take
that
like
at the next meeting.
Yeah,
What's
take
that?
like an ounce from each cask.
Even an ounce. Yeah. Because I mean, if you do an ounce from each cask, 15,000 ounces. 15,000 ounces divided by 24. Let's see how many bottles we're going to get out of this.
But 20, you're thinking 750 mLs. Are these bottled at 750?
Are they 700?
We've moved pretty much to 700s now over the course of the last year.
So what's that? 22?
22 points.
20,
22.
Okay, so let's say 15,000 divided by 21. Call it 21. You'd still get 714 bottles.
There you go. That's
if you did 1 ounce from each, that's a no-brainer. You should just do it.
Put us down for 2
There you
bottles.
go.
Put us down for 2.
Pitch that idea. When you get a promotion, all we want is a bottle. That's all.
Yeah, think about that though. Even an ounce from a cask of whiskey isn't even that much. So even if you wanted to amplify that and say you wanted 5,000 bottles to be able to sell, or I mean, to make sure, well, that would even, you've got over 40,000 members. Say you wanted 40,000 bottles, one for each member, then you're looking at 10, 20 ounces from a,
yeah, you take a couple bottles from each barrel, basically, right? Because it's 15,000
your water bottle and just dip it in.
Yeah,
you're good to go.
That'd be a cool idea. And then put it in like a really old sherry Solera vat for a little while.
Yeah, and then give it some Oloroso maturation.
There you go.
Jeez. Yeah, $1 million idea right there.
I think so.
Yeah.
This is pretty good. I think
it's
this
great
is
with
better.
water. It is great with water.
This is better now than what I remember it being.
Well, it needed time to
Yeah, it is
to
a beast.
chill out. My
yeah.
goodness, this thing. The name is very accurate. It is very fruitcakey.
And
An
a 20.
abundance of fruit
Yeah,
cake.
very a lot. Whether you want it or not, you're getting fruitcake.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So tell us what's going on with the Scotch Test Dummies. Where is the Scotch Test Dummies headed? What are you guys planning to do these days? Anything new coming up in the
What's
horizon?
the next 12 hours of boom?
Bart got too old. Bart got too old for the 12 hour. He can't sit for that long. It kills his taint, he says. Seriously, he says his taint can't handle it. But no,
Crazy.
we did, and it's been 3 years, I think, since we did a 12 hours of boom. So,
Yeah.
we're chugging along. We've noticed, I don't know if you guys have felt anything, but it kind of really feels like YouTube views and like subscribership even kind of plateaued or even
Oh, yeah.
it came off of the peaks and dropped. We've kind of leveled out, but we're definitely off of the numbers we were seeing just a couple 2-3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But and we talked about what to do, how do we kind of rectify it. We said, hey, just keep doing what we're doing, and that single bottle reviews. We do 2 a week. We do a Scotch or a world whiskey on Saturdays and an American whiskey or bourbon on Wednesdays. And we've just kept chugging along doing that, trying to kind of weather the storm and get back. And who knows if it's going to happen right. And I don't know what other people I've talked to some other YouTubers that have kind of saw the same thing. With their views, subscribership and everything, because our numbers were really going up and then they dropped and they've kind of plateaued and leveled off. Still chugging, or a fraction of what we were getting.
Yeah.
But I think that's YouTube overall, and it could be YouTube altogether. It could be the whiskey world in YouTube, like we were talking about all these channels that are out there. Maybe there's just a plethora of content, and
spreading thinner than it used to be, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think some of the new wore off of it, for people too. I mean, we had so many people that used to watch and comment all the time, and you just saw kind of slowly started to see that kind of dwindle a little bit.
Yeah, we've felt the same thing. Actually, the Whisky Rant does decent because we release it on both of our YouTube channels as well as all the podcasting platforms. So it's decent, but like, as far as individual reviews, it really matters what we are reviewing as far as views go. So if it's a Campbelltown, sure, it's going to get a ton of views. Either of us do a bourbon and I think the crickets stop cricketing. Like, it's nobody cares. So there's that. But
yeah, I think that
any of the big brands, Jim Beam comes, Macallan, Ardbeg, any of those kind of and off the shelf bottlings are going to do real well.
Yeah.
And some of the, the special releases as well. But you start getting into newer distilleries, smaller distilleries, single cask type stuff.
Right.
And everything's way down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like a move towards more like short form content as well. Under 1 minute videos, TikTok length videos, like those are getting crazy amounts of views.
Yeah. Out of all the videos that I think still kind of do well, I released an overrated, overpriced a few weeks ago, and it did better than any of my whiskey of the year videos in the last like 3 years. It did like that kind of list video people still love.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
top 5, top 10, whatever.
That worked really well, but you see a little boost and then right back down to reality. It's I don't want to call it scary because none of us were relying on this as a source of income for our families, kind of thing. But it's sad, I guess, in a way, to see how it's dropped a little bit. Right, the community's kind of changed. It's not necessarily as tight knit.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of factors, and another one as well is just the YouTube algorithm. And so I mean, we know YouTube will drive viewers to where the clicks are, and that's the bigger channels,
That's
those
right.
with 100,000, plus subscribers, posting whiskey reviews are going to get the algorithms just going to push people their ways. And I saw, like Whiskey in the Six, you're up to over 15,000 subscribers now, which is good. I mean, you've actually moved along pretty good, it seems like.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, if we were all pacing at the rate that we were pacing at, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we should have been well over,
Yeah.
20, 30,000 by now, right? But it's grinded to a halt. Like there was a point where I hit 2,000. That was when it actually happened, right around when my daughter was born. I hit 2,000 subs, and then 3 months later, I hit 3,000 subs.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like a huge 3 months for me, like enormous. And then from there, it slowed down, and I was averaging about 10 subscribers a day, I would say, on average, to 12 subscribers a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, now it's like 1 a day, 2 a day, 3 a day sometimes.
Yeah.
I think Bart and I with the dummies are averaging about 40 to 50 a month. And
Okay.
we were 400 to 500 a month there for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Right. So I don't even know what my average is at the moment.
I quit tracking. I mean, I used to track like, by 100 subscribers, how long it took, or
Yeah.
like every 1,000 or 10,000 views, how long it took to get, and it was just climbing and getting better and better. And then it's just nosedive the other way. And I'm like, I can't even track this anymore. It's too brutal.
Yeah, it was growing exponentially, and now it's shrinking exponentially. Well, it's not shrinking, it's just not growing as quickly as
But
anywhere
the
near.
thing is, think of those newer channels, or the really small ones. They're even feeling it worse, and I think we'll see a lot of them dropping out because it is expensive. If you want to buy your own whiskeys to do this,
Yeah,
you can drop money pretty darn quick. I mean, easily over $1,000 a month.
easy.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, for sure. You could.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, tell me about
Never
it.
added up. Never
$1,000 a week.
calculated. Don't even think of it.
This bar doesn't fit in the shot, but it goes another, what, like looking at the camera, maybe another double of what you see.
It's
Essentially,
looking good though. You guys got some, and I can see some good whiskeys back there.
it's not bad.
Oh, yeah.
We've done okay over
Couple
there.
of gems, yeah.
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 This is just mine. Jeremy has like a whole ton of whiskey as well of his own.
Well, I
so
don't share any of it, so
he shares less. Yeah, he shares.
It stays at home.
Whatever arrives here, I get to try it then, and then that's pretty much it.
I would even say though, and I don't know what you guys saw with this, but like even like distilleries reaching out, or distributors, or things like that, or people wanting to send bottles to review.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even dropped off. It
Oh,
seems
yeah.
where we used to once a month or so we'd get an offer from somebody that wanted us to review their whiskey, and I don't even remember the last person we had want to send us whiskey.
Yeah, we have some like OG companies that have always helped us out and sent us stuff, but for the most part, we buy. I would say we've always bought at least 90% of our whiskeys.
Mhm.
Now we're buying 95 or 96% of our whiskeys, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've had a rep reach out not too long ago about an Irish whiskey. I'm like, is it available? Can you get it to me in Canada? And they're like, oh, shoot, nope, can't actually get it to you in Canada. So
Yeah, that happens a lot.
that happens. That is happening a lot. Yeah, the
We
restrictions.
can send you a picture of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's getting things into Canada that's tough. Now, I mean, the Ontario government has finally passed a law where we can buy whiskey from other provinces, which
We did so anyway, but now we can just do it without
with the
legality issue.
Yeah, there's no legal issue now doing it. We were always doing that,
nothing
but-
changes for us.
Yeah, it's been the same. Now it just feels now like that little tinge of like fear is completely gone. So.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. It's changed, but you know what? It was expected. Like there's some YouTube sects like cigars, like any tobacco type YouTube is all pretty much shut down. They shut down all monetization, I think, for a while.
Well, the big thing about cigars and tobacco on YouTube is like you cannot link to anywhere to buy tobacco or even say where you can buy tobacco.
Oh, okay.
If you say like a website's name that sells tobacco, like that will get red flagged. You can't even say it. You can't link to it. You can't say it.
You can't put it in the description, nothing.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. You can review a cigar. You just can't
And
talk about where to buy it.
And you can monetize that.
Yes.
So you can't talk about where to buy it. Like that is the most. I don't get it. I mean, I do think that has something to do with why the algorithm is not picking up on what we're doing as much anymore, because they're trying to work away from,
Alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah,
maybe
alcohol. And well, I wonder how many alcohol sponsors Google has, right? Because if they had more of those, then they would have more of a reason to push our algorithm.
Yeah.
Right. Like, when do you see a Budweiser ad or a ad for Glenfiddich on YouTube or an ad for?
You're right. Hardly ever.
I don't see any. I don't see are there any? I don't even.
Yeah.
I still see them on TV, but I don't see them on YouTube anymore.
Right.
So I wonder if that's part of it.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I did see, I think, Maker's Mark I've seen, but I think that's on streaming TV service platforms.
Right.
And I don't know if I've even seen Johnny Walker lately. Oh, another bourbon, a couple bourbons, I guess, but Jim
it's
Beam.
like YouTube doesn't need people to review whiskey on their platform.
No.
Or tobacco.
No.
Right. And like if advertisers like, I don't want to put my ad on someone reviewing whiskey.
Well, the health industry is becoming so much of a factor here now that it's like, well, if I'm promoting health and wellness, I don't want my ads being put on.
Maybe you do actually.
Maybe
because those people watching it are like
that's
super
actually not
unhealthy.
a bad point. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna need those services. So
Yeah, that's true. If everybody's healthy, then they're gonna be
right.
They're all gonna be shit out of luck.
Right. Exactly.
I still stick by the studies that have shown 1 or 2 drinks a day is good for you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Let's stick with that.
Yeah. I like that one too.
Yeah.
But unfortunately up here, they've tried to change it to 1 or 2 a week.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the gender.
Right.
1 or 2 a week is it's not even the recommended, but it's the like, oh, you won't die.
You won't get cancer if you do that minimal amount.
You probably won't die, but we can't guarantee it. And then I don't know if you follow him, but I forget his first name. Huberman, Andrew Huberman. He's got this huge podcast, and he did a video because he does health podcasts and he does various topics, but he did alcohol as one of the topics. And if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you do. It's interesting. It goes into how like basically one drink has only negative effects on your body.
Well, I mean, it is poison.
Yeah, it's
At the end of the
essentially poison.
Delicious, but
Delicious poison.
But does he talk about the mental health aspect of like if it relieves stress or relaxes you or you unwind from a stressful day, like is that a factor?
Just the immediate hormonal effect.
So,
not necessarily like how many people did it prevent from having a heart attack because it thinned their blood and mellowed them in the moments that they probably would have been most stressed and maybe have had a heart attack.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't get into that.
Or like the social aspect of like getting together and socializing with alcohol.
Also didn't get into that.
Right. So those are factors that I think that would benefit you.
Yeah, for sure.
Aren't factored in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. I mean, and there's different studies for different folks out there, but yeah, I mean, and the studies that I stick to and have read, it pertains to those medical benefits, a drink or two, not overdoing it, but it lowers blood pressure, it lowers people's stress. Like Jeremy said, the societal factors of mingling and getting with friends, and enjoying some drinks and the health benefits of those, over.
Right. Outweighing the
Yeah.
negative, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Mhm.
agree. We
Yeah.
all agree. That's why
We're-
the people
we're
watching this
agreeing
are
with
watching it.
Dr. Scotch Test Dummies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you can find studies, that tell you eat whole grains, and then you find a study that says don't eat whole grains.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, there's a study that says eggs are good for you. Then there's a study that says eggs are bad for you. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's always both sides of the spectrum.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Moderation is the key to everything, I think, right?
Well, except maybe crack.
Never, yeah, not once.
I don't think crack could be good for you in any amount.
Watch there be a study that comes out is like microdosing crack is good for you,
Yeah.
whatever.
I have a funny feeling that'll never
Boom,
go.
prove your rate wrong.
Opens up pathways in the brain.
Yeah,
See,
yeah, that's shrooms.
someone once said that about magic mushrooms.
Psilocybin,
never
but
do psilocybin.
Psilocybin's from the earth.
Now it's great.
You know what? I'm not into psilocybin just yet. I'm not knocking it. I wouldn't mind trying it eventually, especially when it becomes legal here. But I'm huge into medicinal mushrooms, like all the medicinal. We've talked about this before. I know we're going on a tangent over here a little bit.
You're taking a turn.
But yeah, check out medicinal mushrooms. Actually, Scott, yeah, if you haven't already, chaga, cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey tail.
Next on Whiskey in the Six, mushroom reviews.
Mushroom reviews.
I love lion's mane mushrooms, but I mean, you fry them up.
Oh, like
but-
you eat them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard they're delicious to eat, but I take them actually in like pill form.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're incredible for your brain, apparently.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of health I mean, they're like anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, and yeah.
Exactly. Well, we won't keep you too much longer because these rants tend to be about an hour-ish. I think we've been pretty close to an hour. I'm not even sure actually what we're at. About that.
Does it say?
I can't see it anywhere. But there's gonna be, I mean, if there's anything that you wanted to trim out, we can always do that.
Why don't you tell people how to get involved with SMWS?
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Depends on where you're at. Canada, I believe, is smws.ca for their website. If you're in the United States, then it's smwsa.com for America, SMWSA. And then smws.com is the UK website. There's more information there. We do operate on an annual membership. If you're in the UK, the best benefit is, if you are in the UK, is our members only rooms over there, where you have to be a member to be able to get into. But they've got restaurants and walls of our whiskeys and stuff that you can drink there. A huge benefit. We have a lot of members that take advantage of those. And if you're a member in Canada or the United States, we also have branches in Australia, Germany, and China or Japan. But everybody has, if you're a member of the SMWS, it's worldwide. You can go to the UK and get into the members' rooms. But really, like in the States and Canada right now, as being a member, you're getting access to our whiskeys. And I have no problem telling people they'll honestly be some of the best whiskeys you'll ever have in your life. So.
Yeah. Well, I remember, and I think they still do it in Alberta. You can, if you're a member, you go into either of those two stores that I mentioned earlier, Kensington Wine Market or Chateau Louis, and they'll pop the bottle and let you try it there and then.
Nice.
I think it's a small fee, like very, very minimal. And then you can buy those sample kits as well, the sample sets of the entire line that's coming out, and then decide from there. And that's, for Canadians, that's a really cool thing because we don't get to do that. We have to buy it, take it home, try it for the first time, and wonder if we wasted our money or not. Or find out later, right? But if you get to try it before you buy it, or you get a sample kit, then you can go back and buy the ones that you liked. That makes buying a lot easier, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
They're pretty cool about that, SMWS globally, I guess, because even in Canada. So
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This
Scott,
was
it's great seeing you. Great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for
A lot
having
of
me on,
fun.
guys. Appreciate it. Long time no see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, stay on the line, but again, if you guys haven't seen this gentleman, I'm sure you've been under a rock for the last few years. Scotch Test Dummies.
Yep.
And now with the SMWS. Scott, you're the man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Rob, Jeremy.
Cheers.
Cheers.